Cold steel rests at 4,790 meters, and something there sleeps not. A state-of-the-art underwater robot plunges through the Atlantic's crushing depths, under satellite and human control, to the battleship Bismarck's resting place. Its floodlights slice into an unbroken darkness that has never seen the sun, sweeping across silt ridges and smashed iron. And when those lights shine on the wreck, the video leaves experts reeling. Did the ship succumb as history records, battered to death by the wrath of the Royal Navy, or is the steel carcass muttering something else? Survivor testimony, 4K drone surveys, and reverberations of previous missions meet in this one spine-chilling dive, reopening a debate that has tormented naval history for over 8 decades. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Far down under the fitful skin of the Atlantic, about 470 miles west of the French port city of Brest, is a cathedral of distorted steel. The warship Bismarck, the sea's former terror, lies perpendicular in the seabed sludge in nearly 4,790 meters depth, nearer to its tomb than most mountains are to their peaks. Here, in water so frigid and dark that human eyes have never actually seen it, the warship is relic and tomb. To Germany, the Bismarck is not just a ship, it is an open wound, a symbol, and sacred earth. More than 2,000 sailors died with her in May 1941, their remains sealed forever in the icy depths. Globally, the wreckage is known to be a war grave, a sea cemetery inaccessible and yet profoundly felt by the memory of nations. To disturb it would not be trespass, but desecration. And so, when explorers of the contemporary era approached it, they did so in reverence, their equipment fashioned not as salvage pincers but as eyes alone. The vehicle of choice for this was no primitive submersible. It was a remote-controlled vehicle, covered in ultra-sensitive thrusters, high-definition cameras, sonar arrays, and millimeter-scale laser scanners. It was designed to travel as gently as a drifting feather, able to ride the wreck without disturbing the seabed, without scratching steel, without entering the silent passageways that once thundered with activity. Its work was unyielding: observe, document, respect. Nothing more. That self-restraint meant something. The drone was not only an instrument of science but a bearer of conscience, recognizing the equilibrium between discovery and respect. No artifact would be removed, no hatch opened, no hand placed on the past. The void would be viewed but not trespassed. And yet even to look provokes argument. Ought humanity look into the quiet at all? Should we shatter the tomb's darkness with the light of man-made lights and the whine of propellers? These were the questions floating in the minds of the crew watching the dive from their control screens. They knew they were not penetrating an average wreck, but a wound of history, a battlefield, a graveyard, a legend. And when the initial pass of the drone's floodlights uncovered the jagged lines of the Bismarck's bow out of the sediment, another reality became apparent: the ship was not merely resting. It bore scars, contradictions, and riddles scrawled in shattered steel. The wreck was not a memorial, it was an enigma. And within the enigma was a tale that would not remain silent. To understand that story, one must return to the late 1930s, when Europe teetered on the brink of total war. In shipyards along the Elbe, German engineers laid down the keel of a vessel meant to project fear across oceans. Launched in 1939, Bismarck was more than metal, she was the embodiment of Nazi ambition, a floating fortress meant to rewrite the balance of naval power. At more than 820 feet in length, over 50,000 tons at full load, and exceeding 30 knots, she was as big as she was quick. Her belt armor was so heavy, up to 320 millimeters, that few thought her vulnerable. She mounted 8 15-inch guns and 4 twin turrets, each capable of firing a shell weighing a car across over 20 miles. To the government, she was more than a warship, a propaganda weapon, evidence that Germany could once again rule the seas. Symbols call for invasion, however. In May of 1941, on her maiden Pyrrhic venture, Bismarck sortied with the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen into the Denmark Strait, determined to penetrate the Atlantic shipping lanes. There, she encountered HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales. What ensued was one of the most cinematic battles in naval history. In a matter of minutes, Bismarck's gunners delivered a coup de grace. A shell smashed into Hood's magazine, exploding it in a blaze of fire and smoke. Britain's Pride, its biggest battleship, ruptured in two and was gone in an instant, carrying more than 1,400 men with her. For Germany, the moment was glory; for Britain, it was a hurt that cried out for revenge. Churchill's command was straightforward: sink the Bismarck. There then ensued a pursuit across the North Atlantic, a dogged hunt by the Royal Navy. Leaking fuel and damaged, Bismarck had tried to flee to France. But on May 26, swordfish biplanes off the carrier Ark Royal intercepted her. Against the odds, one of the torpedoes jammed her rudder, so she could not maneuver. Struck and crippled, she revolved frantically in the ocean, a leviathan ensnared in its own whirl. Early on the second morning, King George V, Rodney, and escorting destroyers closed in. More than an hour they shelled and torpedoed Bismarck, disintegrating her. Survivors testified afterward that scuttling charges were ordered to be set and seacocks opened to keep the British from taking her as a prize. By late morning, the Bismarck went down, dragging most of her crew with her to the depths. History appeared to close the book there. The British had won, German survivors had honor. But when Robert Ballard discovered the wreck in 1989, the steel refuted both accounts. The vessel lay upright, predominantly intact, not annihilated as myth would have us believe. The armored citadel was unscathed by firepower. Subsequent dives by mere submersibles uncovered still more. Shell impacts warped in, but some steel warped outward, as though being blown from the inside. Scuttling charges? Or massive stress fractures as she went down? The facts pointed both ways, and the debate was reopened with renewed vigor. The latest generation of drones, with their millimeter-resolution scans, show details Ballard and previous missions couldn't. Along the side, there are some ruptures gaping inward, traditional signs of outside blows. Others splay outward, appearing to be caused by internal blasts. The stern is particularly ominous. Distorted steel reveals patterns incompatible with torpedoes alone. Some perceive the fingerprints of intentional scuttling. Others perceive the characteristic fingerprint of gradual flooding, water battering one compartment, spilling into the next, until the stern broke loose under impossible loads. The wreckage won't let it rest. The wreck says two things simultaneously: one, of British firepower, one, of German sabotage. Or maybe both, and the demise of the ship was a meeting place for destruction from the outside and inside. Most recent scans give it another frightful twist. Damage does not seem random. It is a sequence, a chain of dominoes of structure failure. Experts now think the Bismarck did not die from a moment of individual killing stroke, but from a chain of progressive failures, which one upon another magnified the previous. Compartmentalization, the very basis of battleship survival, collapsed in domino fashion. This implies her fate might have been sealed not by scuttling charges or by shells themselves, but by physics, forces of pressure and water which no ship, as powerful as she, could resist. To engineers, this is disturbing. If the Bismarck, previously considered almost unsinkable, had sunk to progressive flooding, then no battleship of her day was immune to the same danger. But here is where the science ends and the shadow of memory begins. The Bismarck is not merely steel, but the resting place of more than 2,000 men. Survivors, a mere 116 in number, bore the weight of that day throughout their lifetime. For them, images of the wreckage are not scholarly, they are personal. One survivor, when confronted with submersible photographs, went silent, swept away to the confusion of fire and water. Each steel plate, each deck captured is more than proof, it is the face of comrades who did not come back. That reverence is codified into law. Germany has christened the wreck a war grave protected by law. No penetration, no salvaging, no desecration. Look, but do not touch. And yet the images cannot be unseen. For some, they are breathtaking, a ghost ship frozen in time, teak planking still holding on to decks, paint still faintly readable after 80 years in the dark. For others, it is intrusiveness like cameras panning over a cemetery. Would we tolerate drones recording coffins in the ground? Why then should graves at sea be any different? Each voyage teeters on this ethical balance beam, caught between understanding and respect. What the new scans uncover will perhaps never settle the argument. Rather, they hint at a truth in layers. The Bismarck was hit by British fire, crippled beyond repair. Her men likely rigged scuttling charges to prevent capture. Progressive flooding thereafter hastened her demise, disintegrating her as she sank. Every story is true, but partial. The wreck documents not one demise, but several, intertwined in a refrain of destruction. For engineers, it is a reminder of the limitations of design. For historians, it is a warning not to oversimplify the past. For heirs, it is a reminder that courage and necessity tend to go together. And maybe that is why the footage disturbs us. It is not the appearance of specters, but the reminder of a higher truth: no machine, however powerful, is unbeatable. Human arrogance regarding technology will ever find the confines of possibility, physics, and destiny. The Bismarck was a masterpiece of engineering, but she was defeated by a combination of chance torpedo strikes, continuous hammering, and the chilling certainty of water. To see the wreck entailed gazing into a mirror of pride and consequence. We view not just a warship but a concept, the notion that control of steel can control fate. The chasm preserves judgment, no dominion is absolute, no prediction permanent. The metal tallies. As the drone rises again towards the surface, its lights dying, the steel behemoth below again recedes into shadows. But the questions rise with it, refusing to submerge. Did the Bismarck sink to enemy fire, to her own sailors, or to the laws of physics? The wreck speaks all three simultaneously, and maybe that is its last message: history never gives easy answers. The abyss does not lie, but it neither speaks clearly. It unsettles